Okay, in this video, we're going to take a look at particle system and particle settings and why in the world or particle settings and particle systems. Exactly. I don't know why I keep saying that. All right. So particle settings are basically, or particle system is used to basically distribute objects along a different object. They're used for fur, hair. They're also used for emitting objects, for example, if you need to emit rain or things like that. So it basically creates a bunch of particles in the form of particles or hair on a certain object. Let's take a look at it right now. Selecting the plane, go to the particle settings right here, and we could hit the plus icon to add a new particle setting. We have two options, emitter and hair. Now if we go to the first frame and hit play, this should emit particles over. You could see it's not working. And this is a case where it really shows that it's important which order the modifiers are in. If we go to our Modifiers tab, check it out. It's added in a particle setting modifier. Now this has to be above the edge split modifier. So let's click the little up arrow to put it above. Now if we play this, you could see that it's emitting a bunch of little snow-type white dots everywhere. So now it's snowing. Brilliant. This is really another dimension that our caterpillar is going through. Of course, we don't want an emitter-type particle. This could be used again if it's snowing or raining or there's particles falling from the sky, and it's just really cool. We might use it a different way later, but for now, we want it to be hair and boom. We got a bunch of hair now sticking out of our plane. It's kind of interesting. So we don't want hair. We actually want to distribute some grass. Now, there's a couple different options here, which we'll take a look at as we go. But for now, let's go ahead. And what we need to do is actually model the blade of grass on hit 7 to go into top of you. Shift to add in a plane, and let's just bring this out here. Then, I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode and hit XY. Scale it up, then controller at a loop cut, left click, right click, and in vertex-like mode. Select this one and make it pointy so that you got some kind of sword-looking grass. All right, now select everything as X, scale it down, and then inside, view 3 on the numpad. Let's take control 3, add in 3 loop cuts, by the way. You could increase your loop cuts. Check this out by hitting control. Scrolling your mouse wheel up, or just hitting control. And then 3, and it will add in 3 loop cuts. Then I'm going to select this point right here. The tip right there, turn on proportional editing with the OK, an inside view. I'm just going to hit G, bring down the influence, and just kind of rotate this so that the blade of grass is not completely straight and kind of crooked like that. Now I'm just going to right-click Shield Smooth. All right, sweets, we have our blade of grass, and now this object. Let's go ahead and rename it. We could rename objects by going to the object data right here, and we could rename this grass. And now if we go to our particle settings down here under render right now, it's rendering as a path, which is these little hair-like strands right here. But we can render it as an object, so let's render it as an object. And the object was against the light grass. And now check it out instead of the hair. It's basically switched it and put the grass object everywhere where there was a piece of hair. Sweet. Now it's actually placing it depending on the origin point. So because the origin point on our blade of grass is in the center, it's kind of sticking through the plane right there, which is not good to fix that. We're just going to go ahead and go into edit mode to select everything and hit GY and make sure that the pivot point is at the bottom of the blade of grass. And so now when it distributes it, it looks like that's sweet. Obviously, our blade of grass is looking a little bit rigid and white, and so we need to change the color and make it a little bit more variation to do that. We're just going to add 7 to go into top of view, TABD, to go into edit mode, and with everything selected, head shifted to copy it. And we're going to hit our twice turn off proportional editing, by the way. Otherwise, it's going to move both of them. We're going to hit our twice and kind of rotate this in an arbitrary manner, maybe move. I'm going to select a tipping point and hit Control plus to increase the selection and move and rotate this and just give it a little bit of a differentiation. And now you can see what that does here. We got like 2 blades of grass right there. And now let's add in a third one. I'm going to hit select one of these vertices, Control, and then I'm going to do this in front of you, head shifted, and just rotate this one, rotate it like that again. You could just rotate it randomly however you want, and boom, there we go. And maybe GZ and bring it like that. All right, sweet. So now we got some kind of 3 blades of grass right there. Pretty cool. Let's like this. Add a new material. So we're going to click New, and of course we're going to make it blue. I'm kidding. We're going to make it a greenish color, kind of like that, and maybe a little bit darker. All right, sweet. But now it's looking way too uniform. All right. All the blades of grass look exactly the same. They're all rotated exactly the same, which is exactly how real life is, right? Of course not. So let's go to Particle Settings. We're going to click Advanced right here, which is going to give us some more options. And then we could go to Rotation, select Rotation, and we could increase the Randomize phase and the phase right here. And you can see when you do that and increase the randomize, it will basically change how the blades of grass are rotated. Sweet. So now they're all rotated in random ways, which is much more realistic. Now another thing is that they're all the same size. So we could change that. If we go again under Render right here, we have Scale, which right here we could increase the scale of our grass. Actually, let's make it a little bit bigger, and we could increase the scale randomness to make it more random. And there we go. And so now we have some blades of grass that are big and some that are small. Pretty sweet. Absolutely. Now I want to dictate where the grass will be because right now it's just everywhere. And I don't want that because obviously our caterpillar is being impaled by blades of grass, which is not good for dead. He's dead and is dead. So to do that, we're going to use something called vertex groups. And this allows for us to dictate which vertices this grass will be on. If we go over here to the vertex data where we had the shape KIs, we have vertex groups. Let's add a new group and we'll name this grass. Now, if we hit TABD to go into edit mode, all we have to do, I'm going to hit Alt-A to make sure nothing is selected. Let's bring up the brush tool with the C key, and now we just need to left click and drag wherever we want grass to be. So go ahead, left click and drag wherever you want some grass to be, and just put some grass a little bit everywhere. And again, you could put grass everywhere if you want. You could put it only in some places, etc. I'm going to try to not put it too much where he's actually moving, because again, I don't want grass to be impaling his body if I can help it, you know. But just randomly select where you want some grass to be like that. And then we're going to click on Assign. And so it's basically assigned all these vertices to this group grass. And now what we do is if we go into object mode again, go to the particle settings down here under vertex groups, there's a density tab. And this right here is a vertex group. Icons are all these are vertex groups. We could put vertex groups for all these options. Under density, if we select the vertex group grass, check it out. Now the grass is only where we selected those vertices. Pretty sweet. And so now we could dictate exactly where those vertices will be. Awesome. Now one last thing we want to do is up here. We have the number, so we could increase the number, and we could also, by enabling children right here, it's basically, we'll add a child object of grass to every strand of grass. So right now, if we click simple, it looks terrible. But we could click interpolated, and now it's kind of like a sea of grass, which is not necessarily what I want, but I'm just showing you. So right now, for every blade of grass, there's an extra 10 blades of grass that go around that other blade of grass. We could turn this down to like, say, 2. And now for every blade of grass, there's going to be two children, blades of grass around that blade of grass. So this is a way that we could add some more grass to our scene. However, I don't want to do it this way. I just want to go ahead and increase the number right here. Let's go ahead and try 1,000. So now we have 2,000 of these grass blades all over our scene. How cool is that? Super awesome. Now one last thing we're going to do is add in some rocks around here. So shift they add in a mesh ecosphere, and under the ecosphere settings right here on the bottom left, we're going to put the subdivisions to 1. Let's go ahead and move this to the side. And now what I'm going to do is hit TABD, go into edit mode, select a vertex, and with proportional editing on just hit G and move this out like that so that it gives a random kind of shape. And again, just give it a random kind. Shape for the rock so then I'm going to go into object mode, shift copy it. We're going to make different instances of the rock because we don't want the same rock on all of our scene. We want different looking rocks, and let's make a third one shivved. This one will be a little bit bigger. We'll make it flatter and longer, kind of like that. All right, let's select all three of these. Right, click Shield, Smooth, and Boom. There we go. Now to add these, all we need to do is go over here to the plane again. We're going to go to Particle Settings, add a new particle system, and let's go ahead and rename this first one Grass, and we'll rename the second one Rocks. Now on this one, we're going to go to Render, and instead of rendering it as an object, because right now we have 3 objects, so we can't render it as an object. We're going to render it as a collection. So in Blender, you could group your items into collections, and you could see that in the outliner here, we have seen collection. And right now, everything is in the same collection to create a new collection. We could shift, select all these, and hit Control G, and it was on the bottom left. You will see it says Create New Collection, and we'll type in rocks. And now these 3 rocks have been added to this rock collection. And we could see that if we go to the object data right here under Collections, they are added to the rocks collection. Whereas, for example, the plane is just in the collection of the original collection. So now collections are great ways to basically group items together, and they allow us to do the following. If we select our ground floor and go to our particle system rocks, we could go right here to render, and we can render it as a collection instead of an object. And under the collection, we're going to select the collection rocks, and then we have to change this to hair as well, because right now it's an emitter. And of course the modifiers tab bring the particle setting above the edge, split modifier, and look at that. We have a bunch of little rocks everywhere. However, we want them a little bit bigger. So let's go to the particle setting. Let's go to Advance. Make sure Advance is enabled, and then under Scale, let's increase the scale, and then increase the scale randomness so that we have some random size rocks. And you could increase the scale really big if you want, but I'm going to make it kind of like that. And let's decrease the amount of rocks we have because there's too much rocks. Can you smell what the rock is cooking? All right, enough of that. 20 now, that's not enough. Let's do 100. Okay, let's do 300, should be fine. 300, sweet. So there we go, we got some rocks all over the place. Now in some places where it's very noticeable, you might want to remove the grass from that particle system. Like right here, there's a blade of grass sticking out through the rocks. We could easily go to our vertex groups right here and go to the vertex group grass and select that vertex where the grass is going through the rock. Select these vertices here, and on that vertex root grass, we're going to click Remove, and then that grass won't be in that rock anymore. Also, alternatively, you could add another vertex root for the rocks and select the vertices where you want the rocks to be. But for now, I'm going to leave it like that. The final thing, let's add a texture to these rocks. We're going to go over to textures.com, textures.com. And we're going to search for Rock Dwayne The Rock Johnson. No, not that kind of rock research for rock. And let's go ahead and you can use whatever kind of rock material you want. I'm going to go ahead and use this one right here. So I'm going to select this rock texture right there. And once again, download the albedo, the normal map, and the roughness map, and throw that into a folder. You know the drill. All right. Now back in Blender, let's go ahead and add in this texture to these rocks now for the rock. What we want to do is first split the viewport, and we need to unwrap these. So unwrapping, if we go to UVA, Ed, what unwrapping does is it basically takes your 3D object and flattens it out and places it into a two-dimensional scene right here, so that the 3D object is now a 2D representation and goes on the image. And then what Blender does is it takes that image, puts it on the two-dimensional representation, and then back on the rock. Basically, that's how texturing works. Now, if we had to have to go into edit mode to select everything, you could see it's unwrapped like that. And if we hit, you unwrap, it's already unwrapped. But we have other ways to unwrap it, which we might do right now. Let's add in a material. We're going to click on New. And now we want to add in those 3 images. Remember how we did it the other time for the ground? We went to Shader, Ed, and I'm going to hit the ant key. We went right here and added in the image texture. However, with this certain type of setup, there's actually a shortcut that we could use to add in these 3 images. If we go to Edit and then Preferences, we could then go to Add-ONS and make sure that Node Wrangler add-on is enabled Node Wrangler right there. Now what the Node Wrangler does is it basically adds those 3 images in this particular setup, the same we did for the ground plane. You see these 3 images in the base color and the roughness and in the normal map, but without us having to do it manually. So if we select this rock, this walk, hit Control-Shift-T, it will bring up the Node Wrangler, add on, and then we could just navigate to our folder with those textures, select one of the textures, and then Shift, select all 3 of the other ones. So the albedo, the normal map, and the roughness map, add in those 3, and you could see right away adds in automatically. So if I had Control Spacebar, you will see that right here, we have the albedo texture going into the base color. We have the roughness map going into the roughness, and we have the normal map going into the normal, with everything added in between. And then right here, we just have these additional nodes. This is a textured coordinate node. It basically says that it's taking the UVs. When you unwrap it, it will take those coordinates and then put it into a vector mapping node and then into these images right here. So it's the exact same setup as what we did right here. But instead, we do it more efficiently with just having Control-Shift, and check that out. Our rock now has the texture on it, and we could increase the strength here if we wanted to. I'm just going to put it to 2 now to unwrap this. I want to unwrap it in a different way. I'm going to go to the movie editor, and instead of having it unwrapped like that, I'm going to hit you and select Smart Use Project. And this is basically based on this angle. It will unwrap it and create what are called seams. And we'll take a look at seams future in a future video, but we'll unwrap it based on the angle limit. And if I hit you to unwrap, you could see it unwraps it into different parts right here based on the angle limit. Pretty sweet. Then I'm just going to select shifts like both of these, like that lustre control, copy the materials. And now, with these 2 right here tab, to go into edit mode, to select everything you Smart Use Project and click OK. And now check it out in our scene. We got some dirt and some rocks and some grass and it looking really, really cool. So with that, let's go ahead and save this file. Save as we're going to save it as animation 4, and we will continue in the next video. In the next video, we're going to take a look at HDR eye lighting. So it's a really cool way to light your scene. I'll see you next one, 4.